This is a wonderful time of the year. You know, a lot of marriages go on in this summertime and honeymoons and things like that. We're approaching the beginning of another academic year, and little kids are now bigger kids and going to high school, and high schoolers are going to college. A lot of changes that happen. Sometimes, even when the kids go off to college, it's, oh my goodness, honey, we're empty couple. You know, we're just the two of us now. What do we do with this big house? All kinds of things. So times of our lives change and call for different responses. We see this with Solomon, a very young king. David had died, and he said, "Well, now what am I going to do? I don't know how to be a king." And so he decides to pray to God, and that's something. God said, "Well, what do you want? What do you want?" And Solomon could have said anything. I want the best army around. I want fame. I want riches. I want everybody to like me. I want all my courtiers to agree with me. He could have said all those things, but he didn't. It's not what he asked for. He asked for that spirit of understanding. And that's a powerful, powerful response to God. He was saying it wasn't all about me. And we hear that response from God, because you have asked for this, not for long life and all those things, but an understanding so that you may know what is right. That's what he wanted from God. He wanted to rule as God would rule. And so he becomes this very wise man. Now, he loses it later on in his life, but that's how he started out. He wanted to do what God wanted him to do. That was going to be the greatest king of all if he would have stuck to it. So, we have to look at our lives when things change, when seasons change, families change, those kinds of things happen. And what do we actually pray for? Well, God, I want to get a higher raise. I want to get a new Maserati. I want a bigger home. And, those things they're paltry. I mean, they're no big deal. And we all know that. But that doesn't stop us sometimes from, wanting the things of this earth, even though they're nice things. But that's not using our faith to walk and live our lives from God's perspective. Kind of, being parents are hard. I don't envy parents. I remember my days growing up, and my mother and dad worked very hard at me. But hopefully I got through some of the things. But it's hard with children. You got to watch them and guide them, and all kinds of things like that. And sometimes we have to be careful of the kinds of questions we ask them. Sometimes we ask as they get a little older, well, what do you want to do when you get older? And that's not the question you should ask them. It's not the wise question. The wise question is, well, honey, what do you think God wants you to do with your life? That's the question you should ask. And when you do that, they'll go like this. Well, I don't know. You say, well, don't you think it'd be a good idea to ask God what he wants you to do with your life? See, that's parenting with wisdom. Children are not the only thing with the parents. They are God's children's first. And our job as parents and leaders is to do the best we can in wisdom. And that means we have to do that for ourselves. Now, what does it really mean to be a wise dad? And even before that, what does it mean to be a wise wife, a wise husband? And those of you who are married, that takes some getting used to. It's hard to make those adjustments. And, husbands and wives are called by God to surrender to them each other. And that equality of being that, like Solomon, God, I need your help. So we're called to that. And we see Solomon does, and we see what God does. He gives him that wonderful spirit of discernment and understanding. And he was known for that, the wisdom of Solomon. Well, we need to aim for that. Every one of us should be aiming for a wisdom in their lives. Now, in the gospel, we hear a couple of things that point towards that. If you find a treasure in the field. Well, in those days, when a country was being invaded by another army, people would take their wealth and they would bury it somewhere on their property. They didn't have banks or anything like we have now. And then they would run because they didn't want to get killed. Well, many of those people that left, maybe intending to come back, never did come back. They might have died on the journey, might have been killed by the invading army, all sorts of things. And so maybe a generation or two goes by and a new owner of the land finds this treasure. And so he sells everything to get this plot of land. Do we have that kind of wisdom? That when things change, we first look to God. What is your pearl of great price? What is that for you? No, Monsignor, my pearl of great price is to go to Harvard Medical School and become a doctor. Well, that's not it. Now, you might be called by God to be a doctor. You might be. But if he gives you that opportunity and that and skills, he wants you to heal people. Not just make money, but to heal people, to help them be well. But if you just, but I've got to get to Harvard Medical School. Well, if you go to Harvard Medical School and maybe you're not the best student and you have the lowest grades in your class when you graduate, what are they going to call you? Doctor. Yeah. Even if you have the lowest grades, you're still called a doctor. We have to have better wisdom than that. Just looking out for ourselves. To say, God, how do you want me to live? How do I be a wise dad, a wise mom, a wise husband, a wise wife? What does that mean to you? I always say all the time that the hierarchy of life is God first, spouse second, family third, work fourth. And soccer on Sunday, 342. Our children should not be going to sports things on Sunday and miss Mass. Okay, that's just not a good thing. That's not wise to that. We can do better. And so let's maybe take some time this week to think about that. When do I really ask God for wisdom? What's the pearl that I will give everything for? Obviously, the answer, the most perfect answer is God. That should be the first pearl. The second, a spouse. The third, family. The fourth, work. That's the hierarchy. That's how God set it out. So that's our lesson today, to find the pearl of great price for you in your heart, in your mind, in your soul. And when you respond to God, as Solomon did, God will be there and help you along the difficult times.